Terumot, Perek Yud Aleph, Mishnah Gimel, the third Mishnah in the last chapter of Terumot. We're continuing the Mishnah that we learned before, and this Mishnah actually, we saw yesterday, or the last Mishnah, that it's sort of like an introduction to the last Mishnah, about what you're allowed to do with fruits in order to you have to use them, as we saw in Masechet Shvi'it, Perek Chet, Mishnah Bet, that you have to le'echol davar shedarachol le'echol. You have to eat something that was meant to eat. You have to anoint something that was meant to be anointed. I.e., apples, in the eyes of Chazal, are meant to be eaten. And this is the rule not only for Shvi'it, but it's also the rule we said for Terumah and Maaser Sheni. Apples were not meant to be crushed, and they were not meant to be made into juice, nor pomegranates, nor oranges. It's very interesting. Therefore, the Mishnah says, En osim tamarim dvash. According to, if you have tamarim, if you have dates, you cannot make them into date juice, date honey as it's called. It's interesting. Why is it called dvash? Okay, Eretz chita u'se'ara v'gefen teina. This is the Shiva Minim. Eretz zeit shemen u'dvash. Dvash is actually interesting, the description of dvash for tamarim. Which has raised a fascinating question now that I think about it. If the Torah described it as dvash, then why is that not considered a primary use? Nonetheless, that's what it is, okay? Why? Ein osim tamarim dvash, imem shel truma o shel maaser sheni, shat tamarim ochel v'advash mashkeh. The tamarim are food, and dvash is a mashkeh. V'en machzibin ha'ochel mashkeh. You cannot turn food into drink. You have to use it the way it was intended to be used. I don't know. If you have any idea, if you have any thoughts about why the Torah calls it dvash, and Chazal felt nonetheless that it was considered only a food and not a liquid, artsbalder@gmail.com. I'd love to know your thoughts. I just thought about it now. I'm not entirely sure. And while we're at it, we'll dedicate the learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Back to the Mishnah. Okay, so therefore, you can't do it. Velo sitvaniot chometz. We saw sitvaniot. Sitvaniot are the fall grapes, the late developing grapes. They were not used for wine. You have to eat them. You can't make them into vinegar. V'sha'ar kol peirot, other fruit, ein mishanim otam bebriyotam b'truma u'b'maaser sheni. You can't change them from their original form when they are in truma and maaser sheni. Ela zeitim v'anavim bilvad. You can only do it to olives and to grapes. Why olives and grapes? Says the Bartanur. We mentioned this in the last Mishnah. Dibeferush amrat Torah behem. The Torah says explicitly, kol chelev yitzar v'kol chelev tirosh. Tirosh is wine. Yitzar is, I looked it up. Yitzar is oil. Kol chelev tirosh. Okay, so the Torah specifically says it's called tirosh and yitzar, and therefore you can use them as oil. So once we talked about one of the differences between olive oil, between oil and grapes and wine and other fruits. So the first one the Mishnah says is you can't squeeze them, you can't turn oil, you can't turn fruits into juice. You're not allowed to do it for Terumah and Maaser Sheni. It raises a very interesting question. What if I grow the fruits specifically for their juice? We know there are different types of oranges. Some oranges are meant to be peeled and eaten. Some oranges today are specifically grown for their juice. So if a person grew that, would this Mishnah apply? I don't know. It's a very interesting question. I'm sure people discuss it. And so now the Mishnah is going to turn to different elements or different areas where grapes and oil are different than other fruits. Says the Mishnah, Ein sofkin arba'in. Sofeg means to absorb arba'in, 40. Absorb 40 means to get malkot, to get lashes. So we don't give lashes to someone, mishum orla, for eating of orla. Orla are the fruits that are grown during the first 3 years that a plant is planted. The Torah says, okay, one second, let me find it. Here we are, Vayikra Yud Tet, Chav Gimel. Isn't that nice, how instantaneous it is? V'chitavo ala aretz. You should, when you come to the land, Udatatem kol eitz machal v'araltem orlatot pirio. You plant all kinds of fruit trees. Ye shall count the fruit thereof as forbidden. Orla is forbidden. Shalosh shanim yelechem arelim lo yeachel. 3 years. So for 3 years, you can't eat the fruit. Back to our Mishnah. Let's say you didn't eat the orla fruit, you drank the fruit juice. So if you drank fruit juice, if you drank orange juice, you don't get malchus. I'm sure it's Asur Rabbanan. Ella ala yosei min hazeitim ve'anavim. Unless you ate grapes, olives, or grapes that were from orla. Then you get the full malchus. Next halacha. Ein mivi'im bikurim mashkim. When I bring bikurim, the first fruits, I have a pomegranate. I can't bring pomegranate juice. That's hard to say, pomegranate juice. Can't bring as bikurim. Rather, I have to bring the pomegranates themselves. And the only produce I can bring as liquids, ela mina yotzei mina zeitim umina anavim. I can bring olive oil, and I can bring grapes, I can bring wine. Furthermore, ve'eno mitameh mishum mashkeh, the only oil, the only liquids that are metameh, the produce of drink, is metameh mishum mashkeh. This is what we learned in the Mishnah before. Ela yotzei min hazeitim umin ha'anavim. The only thing that comes out of zeitim ha'anavim. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yoshua in the Mishnah before that we learned, Parak Yud Aleph Mishnah Bet. Finally, ve'emak rivim al gabei mizbeach ela yotzei min hazeitim ve'anavim. The only liquids that are offered on the mizbeach as nisachim are oils and shemen lemenachot and wine. Wine is called the nisachim. The only things that are brought on the mizbeach are things that come out of zeitim and anavim. I was wondering, so I saw a Rav here in Yad Binyamin this morning. I wonder the following. There's another very, very famous halacha that is relevant to us today. That's related to Hilchot Shabbat, and I am curious why the Mishnah didn't include it. Again, if you have any thoughts, arspalter@gmail.com. I'd love to hear them. The halacha is the halacha of disha, of schita. Schita means squeezing. The halacha of disha is removing something from its original form, from its original packaging. So one of the ramifications of dash, of threshing. What's threshing? When the animal walks on it, we crush the seed of the wheat in order to remove the seed from the chaff. So that's called disha. And one ramification is the idea of schita, of sochet. People don't realize that schita is prohibited because of disha, because of threshing. And the halacha is very clear. The only isur d'oraita of squeezing fruit applies to zeitim and anavim. Every other fruit, it's asur. You're not allowed to squeeze fruit juice for it, but it's only midrabanan, okay, to get the juice from the fruit. If I squeeze a lemon for the juice to drink, to make lemonade, that's disha midrabanan, mati oraita. So it's a very interesting question. Why did our Mishnah, that's making all these differences between zeitim and anavim, why didn't it list this difference as well? I'll leave that for you. You can think about it, contact me, and if not something for thought, for food for discussion. Have a great day.